This video is intended to give you some information to help you focus your review for the IOC that will be in January. I'm not going to read what's on each slide because I only have about 15 minutes in which to present the information. So go ahead and look at the different documents that are listed here, come back, or pause the recording in order to help you with that. I'm going to go over the objectives of commentary. We'll look at a little bit about the structure, how you might start your review, things to avoid, as well as building your confidence. I'm not going to be able to answer any questions live, but you're certainly welcome to send me questions, and then some Q&A is already posted on Blackboard. Again, I'm not going to read everything on each page. This is just the basics from the IB assessment guide, so you can pause this, look at it. It's the facts and then the key details about what a commentary is. In January, you will find that the passages are assigned at random. You're not going to know what passage you're receiving. You're not going to know which text it is. They'll be 25 to 40 lines long. In class, we've had discussions or you've practiced with passages that were longer than that, but we're going to be shortening them. So even though you think that you know where a passage starts or stops, that might not be the case, again, because it's random and because we're not going to use a passage that you necessarily already had an assessment on. You'll want to look at the beginning and ending sentences because we've chosen them strategically to help you identify themes and meaning. Some quick tips based on your individual level of knowledge and understanding. So review this. You fall in one of these categories. It's either incomplete because you haven't done a lot of reading, it's fairly good, or it is pretty good. I'm going to go over what your strategy should be based on these levels of knowledge. So for people who have good knowledge, you're scoring well. The things that you should study are what your best ideas are. What are the themes and situations that you understand best in each of the texts? For you, you want to do kind of a toolbox activity and really understand each author's style, and then go back to Blackboard and look at the documents I referenced on the first page to make sure that you're able to discuss those and the effects of those. If your knowledge is fairly good, then you would want to get clear about the themes and conflicts. Many of you are still using pretty abstract language that's not really helpful. Knowing maybe 3 to 5 themes or conflicts really well and having your own review guide is going to help you not make mistakes. I would recommend that you do some kind of a mini quote bank to look at the ways in which techniques work together. That's really the essential part for getting a 5 or better. Make sure you only discuss what you know. If your knowledge is pretty incomplete, your goal really is to try to get a 4. It might be difficult to get a 5. You might be able to do that, but you'd have to borrow from the tips for the other ones. You need to be really wary of taking on other people's analysis because you won't be able to prove those things. Look at the key passages, look for the different techniques. And the day before and the day of your IOC, all of these things are important. So pause here, make sure that you jot down all of these details and what you should bring with you. During the IOC prep and marking your passage, you want to calm your nerves. When you're sitting there, when you get the passage, you want to be asking yourself this set of questions. The gut reaction is not simple. It should answer these different questions. What do I feel, think, what's happening on the surface, what's happening below the surface? And then as you get ready to mark, this set of questions would be the ones that you would look for. Now you're ready to annotate the passage. You've looked at these questions and you're thinking about them. You want to write a list of what to look for based on the author. You recognize the author. You should have studied by creating that list of stylistic techniques. It should be a list that you write on your page. If you're observing something, one of the mistakes people are doing is they're highlighting an entire sentence, like this one I have here in red. It's better to highlight chunks of it, like walls of flowers, ochre, lavender, pink, flourish and die within a month. Right? Because you want to quote walls of flowers on line 6. The colors ochre, lavender, and pink are part of a motif of colors that are found within this passage. This quotation is from Kutapitya within running in the family. Again, you don't want an entire sentence marked. If you see something that's in a whole sentence, that should be marked in the margins. The highest scores are given to commentaries that are not summary, but you have some analysis and you build your analysis based on the observations and the techniques. So the things that you want to add when you're marking would be the relationship of this passage to plot, character, theme, writing some of those connections there. You should also look at the tone, different elements of language. You absolutely need things connected to structure and style. Many of you are still getting tone wrong. I strongly suggest that you review either by reading about it or finding one of the YouTube videos that say tone versus mood. Tone is the author's attitude, how they are writing about, how Morrison or Ondaatje is writing about the situation, versus mood, which is how we feel. Some students have had some questions about what to say in the introduction. Your go-to is, again, that break glass handout, but basically you're going to start with the tag, and then you're going to get into context, and then you have an argument or thesis. This is what you're saying as an introduction to your commentary. I gave you some sentence frames that you could use. Obviously, you might want to personalize them so that you're not saying the same sentences that everyone else is, but these are some ways that you could say your tag sentence. And then your context should be pretty broad and then some specific details. You would not want to discuss true identity or find out who the father was or who the character is, because all that's pretty basic. And then this would be a frame for the argument. Just to elaborate a little bit on that, your tag, that kind of really broad context would include details such as historical, social, and economic contexts, perhaps the overall purpose of the work itself. Remember that Ondaatje's purpose is to explore his family's history and to better understand the relationship between his parents and his father and his second wife, to understand really the situation that his father was in as he died. Then you would follow with context within the larger text. What's the chapter name? What's the storyline? What's the plot development? How does an extract, for instance, fit into Violet's internal conflict or Joe's internal conflict? When you know details, you must say them. Don't just say, what happens to Dorcas? Say, when Joe shot Dorcas at the party. The more specific the information that you have, the better your knowledge and understanding score is going to be, and even your organization and your development. Then you would have information about the significant elements in the extract. So you would be able to answer what's happening with the structure, what's happening with the language. Some of you are still referring to themes as topics, saying things like, there's a theme about abandonment, or the theme of abandonment. Abandonment is a topic, it's a thing, it is not a broad idea. And then your central point really should lay out what you're going to argue. You would make a point such as, in order to understand the way in which gold and gray represents racism, it's important to analyze the structure, the visual imagery and auditory imagery, the racist thoughts and justifications from gold and gray, and the symbolism of water. And you would want to mention those in a similar way to how you're going to lay them out. Organization is really key for organizational development and for knowledge and understanding. You want to be that explicit in ways that we've kind of trained you not to be within an essay, saying, first I'm going to discuss this, and second this, and third this. In the case of a commentary, you do want to be that explicit. As you're marking your passage towards the end, in the last 5 minutes, you want to make sure that you've written out your first 2 sentences. Don't try to write an essay. It just wastes your time. You really want to have bulleted notes. You want to have marked your passage with numbers that indicate to you quickly what you're going to be discussing. You might want to do the commentary with a pencil in hand so that you're checking off the things as you say them. You should write out a sentence that links the different techniques to meaning, because at some point in the middle of your commentary, you want to be able to make a statement that indicates the ways in which visual imagery and structure, sentence fragments, for instance, work together to emphasize the despair a character's feeling, for instance, and the ways in which that despair highlights the struggles and pain that people were undergoing in that time of crippling racism or something along those lines. Make sure that you've underlined the key meaning sentences. In every single passage, you can look at it and you can find a sentence that really captures a lot of the meaning. Find that, and that also gives you something really effective to say within the passage. Look for both Annotation and Morrison will give you that sentence that captures something about the wisdom or the meaning. It might not be in the reason that you want to read the entire vignette or you want to read the chapter really well is because that statement might not be in the passage. We'll try to put some of them in the passages as we decide on the lines that we're choosing, but it might be that the one that makes the most sense to you is a few lines before or after. So by reading carefully the entire chapter from which you think your passage may come, you're going to have a better sense of how to discuss that theme. Make sure that you're doing all of these to put the passage in context. That's just elaborating on what we're looking at here. In terms of writer's choices, you want to be sure that you are thinking of the questions that each text asks rather than the answers. This is just a quick list of things to look for in Annotation's style. You can pause and write these down. Narrative voice is not narrator. Those are two different things. If you want to discuss narrative voice, you want to make sure that you know what it is. And number 5 is really important. Make sure that in every chapter within jazz, you know who's speaking and why. So this is a quick diagram of what goes into narrative voice. And most critical probably in jazz is really whether or not we can believe what the narrator is saying. What is the reliability of that narrator? Make sure when you're speaking that you're not rushing, but that you should speak fairly quickly, like I'm doing right now. Many of you are speaking too slowly and maybe to be clear, but then you're not saying enough things. Absolutely make sure that you're citing by line number. If we're not highlighting, we can't find the quotation, and you want to make sure that we can follow your argument well. Again, reminder, don't follow the passage. You're following the ideas. You're looking at how a theme is constructed. You should imagine yourself going from the surface down into the different depths within the passage. We're going to be listening to you and taking notes throughout the whole thing, so maybe not always making a lot of eye contact. We have to interrupt you if you continue after 8 minutes, so watch the clock and stop around 7.5 minutes or 7 minutes 45 seconds. We're trying to help you earn points. Bonus would be to be able to discuss some of the more sophisticated things going on in the passage, such as the tension. Don't think of tension in this case as emotions, but the ways in which things are working with one another or are holding things. We're kind of waiting to exhale. We're waiting for that idea to come out. So, for instance, the scene that Annotation uses to open Running in the Family when he's having these dreams and it's hot and the tension with the cold. We're not sure where that's going to, and then it breaks with his revelation that he's already running and he's already in that journey. If you think things are ambiguous, look at that. Make sure that you prove symbols, and that a bonus would be to really analyze the symbolism, and then once you've made that assertion that something is a symbol, to be able to go back and look at other things within that extract with that lens. You definitely want to be able to position that extract within the novel as a whole, and make sure you just name everything that you can name. If you know a character's name, if you know a relationship between characters, all of those things are what are going to help you earn the highest points. Don't get overly committed to some of the weaker things like repetition and juxtaposition. It's fine to use them, but make sure you're using some of the more specific and important techniques that you see within the passage. So that's it. We're about out of time. I hope that this was helpful, and if you have more questions, we'll have some review right before the actual IOCs. Good luck.